All righty. It says that we're live, and you guys know the drill. We're going to check to see if we have audio. Let the snorting begin. All right. Let the snorting begin. Hey, it works. All right. So this is going to be a fun one, in my opinion, and this is Deuteronomy 25. We're going to start in verse 5, and we're going to end on verse 10. And this is a law, and this made it into the Bible. And this is a commandment to spit in your brother-in-law's face if he doesn't follow the rules. But we're going to get into that. I think there could be interesting things about this. So I have, this whole thing. Hold on. Just trying to have a clear talking voice. This whole thing should make you think about the women woman that your brother marries. You could be responsible for her, and we're not in the Old Testament, but this is in the Bible, and I've never heard anybody preach about it. And so I'm going to preach about it now, and we're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 25. Let's get some water first. Moses had a speech thing. Your boy has a snort thing. All right. Deuteronomy chapter 25, starting in verse 5, God said, "If brethren dwell together, and one of them die, and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her, and take her to him to wife, and perform the duty of a husband's brother unto her. And it shall be that the firstborn which she bears shall succeed in the name of his brother which is dead, that his name be not put out of Israel. And if the man like not to take his brother's wife, then let his brother's wife go up to the gate unto the elders, and say, My husband's brother refuses to raise up unto his brother a name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of my husband's brother." Verse 8, "Then the elders of the city shall call him and speak unto him. And if he stand to it and say, I like not to take her, then shall his brother's wife come unto him in the presence of the elders, and loose his shoe from off his foot, and spit in his face, and shall answer and say, So shall it be done unto the man that will not build up his brother's house." Verse 10, "And his name shall be called in Israel, the house of him that has his shoe loosed." So in verse 5, the very first verse, it says, "If brethren dwell together." So it sounds like they're living in the same house. I guess this would not apply if you're a brother from somewhere else. Some woman shows up and says, I'm your brother's wife and he died. This is not for you. You don't have to do this. All right. But I have, you are your brother's keeper. And so if he dies, you're helping him by keeping his name alive. If he didn't get to have a kid, you're helping him by taking care of his wife and stuff like that. And this is going to help your brother in his legacy. This is going to protect your brother's wife. If your brother is dead, you're going to take care of his wife and take her as your wife. So all of the duties and the responsibilities will transfer over. She will become your wife. All right. Maybe, but I have this because I just wanted to think about this philosophically. Hold on. Maybe your brother was stupid and married like a Jezebel. Maybe he married somebody who was fat and ugly, and you don't want to marry them. You don't want to do it for whatever reason. Maybe her personality is bad. You have the option. You could choose. It says to change your name to the name without a shoe, and Jezebel gets to spit in your face. So if it's worth it, if you know something the elders don't, and you don't want to marry this woman, you don't have to do it. You're just not going to do it. They're not going to make you marry her. Uh, you know, you would rather be spit in the face and change your name to shoe person. This is a message to women right now that I'm about to say. Be nice to your husband's brothers and family, because this is a principle here, is that you could see, what would he not want to marry you? I was thinking about this earlier. is you know, I was thinking about this earlier. So does think about don't think about committing adultery with your brother's wife, but is that somebody that you would want to marry? Did your brother pick somebody that you would want to marry? Is she bad? Is she Jezebel? Is she a nightmare woman? Is she a Jezebel? uh, you should be your brother's keeper and protect him from the strange woman. We see this all the time. A woman will separate, or a woman separates her family from his family, or a husband from his family, like a predator. Oftentimes, there's family problems, is what I'm trying to say, where the guy marries a woman. The woman's causing family problems. She fights with the parents. She doesn't want you to be near your friends. She doesn't want you to be near your brothers. That's a complaint that I hear men say about women, that she tries to move you away from your family, probably because she's acting like a Jezebel, or something like that, or maybe your family's bad. I don't know. But let's go on back to the text. So Deuteronomy 25 verse 6, it says, "And it shall be that the firstborn which she bears shall succeed in the name of his brother which is dead, that his name be not put out of Israel." So the firstborn uh, is likely referring to a son, because that's who would have the name. Women don't transfer their name. And the only firstborn to have the dead brother's name is the firstborn. It's none of the other borns or anything like that. None of the other sons. You get to have them if this is you and you have to marry your dead brother's wife. All the other sons would have your name. So, but this is for a specific purpose. It says to protect his name and legacy. And I think that this is a virtue many men could identify with, so that, let's say that you were to die and you didn't have any kids, that another kid would take up your name and his legacy, his name would continue. There's something very honorable about that I think is missing in society today. We just have bastard children, feminists, get divorced, ruin your lives. Women are getting married to the men and keeping their name and all this kind of disgusting stuff. The other children can have the name of the father who would be raising them. So there is an incentive here. You get to have a life, or a wife, and you get to build a life with her and things like that. Maybe you're having trouble finding a wife, but now you've got a wife. That could be maybe a good thing. Maybe that's why you're dwelling together as brothers or something like that. Hold on. La 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 la. All right. Um, Deuteronomy 25, verse 7 goes on to say, "And if the man like not to take his brother's wife, then let his brother's wife go up to the gate unto the elders, and say, My husband's brother refuses to raise up unto his brother a name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of my husband's brother." So I put this in here. We could see that there's elders of the city. These are going to be older people. A 10-year-old is not an elder. These are going to be like when I was coming up, we had older men who were like retired, and they had a gas station up the road, and they've gained wisdom, they've gained knowledge, they know how to do things and fix stuff, and they've been around a long time. They would sit in rocking chairs at the gas station, and they would just sit there in the mornings and stuff. They would hang out. Maybe they would smoke cigarettes or whatever. They would drink coffee, and they would just sit there at the gates of the city. They would sit there together. So, this woman gets to go to them. We have a high reverence for the elders of the city. They're rare. They're ready to go to give counsel and to help people. Maybe they care about the youth. They care about the community. They're volunteers at the gates of the city. A lot of stuff has to do with the elders at the gates of the city. They're going to regulate some of this stuff. It's not always going to go to the priest. It's not always going to go to the judges. This might be a lower level type of a thing, and this is going to go to the elders. But like I said, it just reminds me of, we had older guys when I was young who worked their whole lives. Maybe they're retired, and they're there for you. And they would say that. They would say, hey, if you ever need to talk to anybody, I'm here for you. Literally, I had good neighbors, people like Ben Grubbs. We'll give him a shout out. He would do that. And he would say, if you ever need to talk to somebody, get your mind right and your butt will follow and stuff like that. They had wise words to say. He's dead now, but they had wise words to say to the young people. All right, the elders of the city. But moving on, Deuteronomy 25, verse 8 says, Then the elders of his city shall call him and speak unto him. And if he stand to it and say, I like not to take her. So that's the end of the verse. But it says, that they're going to get his side of the story. Basically, they're going to call him and ask him just to make sure this isn't some woman who's lying. Maybe they're going to get his side of the story, and he's going to say, "Hey, I don't want to marry her because she's got herpes. My husband or my brother was an idiot. He became a husband to a woman who had AIDS or HIV or something like that. And you can prove this, medical documents or something like that, or maybe just, oh, look, she's got a herpes or whatever." And they're going to be like, okay, we found some uncleanness in her. He's going to stand to it. It says he's not going to lower his guns. He's not going to marry this Jezebel. He doesn't want to do it. He's going to hold on to his position. The connection's doing something weird. Let's read it again. So he's going to hold to his position. He'd rather get spit on. He'd rather change his name to the guy with no shoe and stuff like that. He's going to take that. He would rather have that. But let's keep going. So Deuteronomy 25, verse 9 says, Then shall his brother's wife call unto him in the presence of the elders, and loose his shoe from off his foot, and spit in his face, and shall answer and say, So shall it be done unto that man that will not build up his brother's house. So the woman, it says, wasn't even there. So it says, Then shall the brother's wife come unto him in the presence of the elders. So she wasn't there before. So when Jezebel's talking to the elders or whatever, the husband isn't there. Then Jezebel leaves. Then they're going to get homeboy. And then homeboy's talking to the elders. And then when they're done and he says, I'm not marrying her, she's got herpes or whatever. So then the woman is going to come at the end. And the woman wasn't there for this deposition, probably to maintain some kind of order. This guy gets to give his side of the story. He's going to say she's crazy. She's got herpes or whatever. And she's not there to put up resistance to this. We're getting diligent inquisition. Women are notorious for interjecting and interrupting when you're trying to give a clear account. They don't want to let you tell the truth. Maybe that's part of the reason that this brother doesn't want to marry this widow. They're going to do a diligent inquisition though. But if the man is doing something wrong and he's doing a folly and he deserves to be spit on, and his name should be changed to the guy with a lucid shoe. He's got no shoe. He's got one shoe. He's out there walking around. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be a mini justice. So he's not going to get whipped or anything like that. He's not going to go to jail. The dead guys whose brother won't marry his wife, his name is going to disappear. It's going to be the end of his name. That's the end of a name, but we've got a new name for the other brother. Now we've got, I call him the Shoeites. He's going to be there with the Shoeites, and they're all going to be having one shoe together because they wouldn't marry their brother's wife when he died. And they're going to be the Shoe Clan. They're going to be a clan of shoeless men. That's going to be their name. They're starting a new half tribe of Shoeites. So the brother has his duty to his brother and possibly to a good woman if she's a widow. This is only in the case that the woman has no children. You don't have to do this if she has one child. That's somebody else's problem. She's got to go back home to dad or something like that. If she doesn't have any children, she doesn't have a dad, her life is all messed up, she's probably going to have to become a prostitute. That's what used to happen to women, and it wasn't illegal to exist as a prostitute. A lot of people don't know that. It does say, don't allow your daughter to become a prostitute because it'll bring wickedness into the land. We definitely see that today in our country. But I have this also. She's not allowed to marry a Levitical priest unless she's a virgin. So if she lost her virginity to her other husband, this is not happening in the tribe of Levi. We're not doing that. Hold on. I am sure this means if this situation happened to a Levi and the woman would not be allowed to marry her husband's brother because Levitical priests have to marry virgins. So unless she's a virgin, this does not apply to Levites. I don't know. I know that's kind of a weird one, but we got it at about 15 minutes. I just wanted to do that. and just give my thoughts on that kind of a thing. I've never heard anybody talk about that verse before, and we're not under that. But you should help if your husband or if you have a brother who was a husband to a woman and she's a widow, you should help her. The New Testament says that. And I just wanted to do this video. I hope somebody thought it was interesting. Like and subscribe.